If you're here, chances are you've watched Arcane and know all about Jinx. She's a genius building incredible weapons, outsmarting enemies and being one of the best fighters out there, but she's also a bit crazy. Today, we're diving into Jinx's mind and exploring whether her chaos might actually be a reflection of something deeper, borderline personality disorder. Let's get into it. 1. Jinx's childhood trauma and fear of abandonment. To understand Jinx's chaos, we need to go back to her childhood, when she was still Powder. She wasn't always the wild, volatile person we see now. Back then, she was just a little girl, desperate to be loved and to prove herself.
One day, I'm gonna ride in one of those things.
But everything changed when her parents were killed during a violent uprising in Zon one night. Powder lost her family, her safety, and her sense of stability. After losing their parents, Vi became Powder's anchor, her protector, her role model, and the only person she could truly depend on. Powder's entire sense of self was tied to Vi's approval and love, which is a core struggle for people with borderline personality disorder. Fear of abandonment is one of the defining traits of BPD, and for Powder, the thought of losing Vi was her greatest nightmare. When Vi and the others decide to rescue Vander, they don't take Powder with them. To Powder, this isn't just about being left behind, it feels like rejection. Her deep—
You're not coming.
I'm not afraid.
It's too dangerous.
But families stick together, you said it yourself.
Her deepest fear that she's a burden and not good enough, suddenly being confirmed by the people she loves most. Powder desperately wants to prove herself, to show that she's not useless. But being excluded pushes her into a spiral of guilt, fear, and desperation. This moment is a clear example of splitting, where Powder sees the situation in black and white. Either she's loved and needed, or she's completely worthless. For someone with BPD, being left out of heaven with good intentions can trigger a breakdown because it feels like abandonment. Powder's emotions become so overwhelming that she can't think rationally, which leads to her impulsive and tragic decision to intervene with the grenade. The weight of Jinx and emotional dysregulation. Powder's insecurities were constantly reinforced by the people around her. Milo would mock her, calling her a Jinx whenever things went wrong.
Every time she comes, something goes wrong. She jinxes every job.
But
Just
Vi was
drop
different.
it, Milo.
Vi always reassured her, telling her she was capable, that she wasn't a burden.
You heard them. I'm not a fighter.
You don't have to be. Look, I've got these. And you've got those.
They never work.
They will.
Vi was the only person who believed in her, which made her words carry far more weight than anyone else's. But after Powder's homemade grenade accidentally caused the deaths of their friends and family, everything changed. In a moment of overwhelming grief and anger, Vi called her Jinx Tooth, a very name Powder feared most.
Why did you leave me?
Because you're a jinx! Milo was right!
And coming from Vi, it wasn't just an insult. It was validation of everything she already believed about herself. It was the final straw that broke her fragile sense of self-worth.
I need you, please.
This moment illustrates the emotional dysregulation seen in BPD, where one event can trigger an extreme, disproportionate emotional reaction. Powder wasn't just upset, she was completely shattered. Someone with BPD being called Jinx by the one person they trust can feel like their entire world is falling apart.
She is not my sister anymore.
Silco's role and identity confusion. After Vi's departure, whether intentional or not, Powder was left completely alone. That's when Silco found her at her most vulnerable.
Hello, little girl.
Silco gave her a new purpose, a new name, and a twisted sense of belonging. But instead of healing her, this only deepened her identity confusion. Another key trait of BPD, Powder no longer knew who she was. Was she the innocent little girl Vi loved, or the destructive Jinx that everyone else saw her as? By fully embracing the name Jinx, she abandoned her old self Powder because it was too painful to hold on to.
Jinx! That's me!
This reflects the unstable self-image that often accompanies BPD for Jinx. Her new identity was both an escape from her guilt and a shield against future rejection. For impulsivity and emotional outbursts. As Jinx, we see her struggle with emotional dysregulation and impulsivity, hallmarks of BPD. Whether it's her violent outbursts, sabotaging her relationships, or acting recklessly, Jinx's actions are driven by overwhelming emotions she can't control. These behaviors, while destructive, are her way of coping with the pain of abandonment and rejection. The voices in Jinx's head, trauma and paranoia. As Jinx grows older, her trauma takes on a new form, voices in her head. These voices are not random, they are manifestations of her guilt, fear, and paranoia. She hears Milo mocking her, calling her a failure, and even her younger self Powder crying out in pain. These hallucinations are tied directly to her unresolved trauma, and are a way for her mind to process the overwhelming emotions she can't face directly. Hallucinations like these can occur as part of trauma-related disorders, especially when someone experiences deep feelings of guilt and fear of abandonment. For Jinx, these voices represent her inner critic, the part of her that believes she's worthless and unlovable. It's as if her mind has split into different parts, all fighting to control her actions. Jinx tries to fight these voices.
She was there for me, not the
She
enforcer.
doesn't want to believe that she's the Jinx Milo accused her of being, or the failure her mind convinces her she is. But every time she starts to regain some sense of control, the world around her reinforces her fears. Acting on fear, paranoia, and impulsivity. What's heartbreaking about Jinx is that, despite the chaos she creates, she's constantly searching for love and reassurance. But her paranoia, and other key trait of BPD, makes it almost impossible for her to trust anyone. Even when she tries to fight the voices, any sign that her fears might be true pushes her to act impulsively. When Vi returns, Jinx's hopes are reignited. For a moment, it seems like everything she's ever wanted, a chance to reunite with her sister, is within reach. But the voices in her head tell her otherwise. They whisper that Vi will leave her again, that Vi has replaced her with Caitlyn. And when she sees even the slightest sign of this, like Vi showing kindness to Caitlyn, she snaps. To Jinx, this isn't just jealousy. It's proof that she's about to be abandoned again.
Friend.
Silco wasn't lying? You're with an enforcer?
7. The identity shift to Jinx. In the end, Jinx fully embraces the name she once dreaded. For her, Jinx is no longer just an insult. It's an identity, a way to shield herself from the pain of being Powder. Becoming Jinx allows her to bury her guilt, but it also isolates her further. The name symbolizes her transformation, not just into a weapon of chaos, but into someone who believes she's unworthy of love or redemption. It's a heartbreaking reflection of the unstable self-image that defines borderline personality disorder. Thank you for watching this video. If you want me to make videos like this about other characters or any characters, let me know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. Cupcakes.
You're hot, Cupcake.